Now, the smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Tulis.
The Chattanoogans who went to Charlottesville to protest and those who were injured on both sides of the clash last week are part of a family squabble among those who are nationalists. They're all nationalists. They all believe in the superiority of the nation over the people. They believe in the superiority of the federal power over state and local power. And they are, in a way, all of them fascinated by muscle, by policing, by wars, by eagles, by banners, and by flags, all of which are signs and appurtenances and nomenclature of the nation state. Now, here in Chattanooga, if you are my listener, and I count you as one at least for a couple of minutes today, you are starting to think in a different direction. And that direction is local economy and the free market. If we have that perspective, and if we have perhaps the perspective that a Christian might offer in this analysis, we're going to see that the conflict is not as clear as Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally makes it, or even Beth Foster at Mercy Junction Peace and Justice Ministry here in Chattanooga, who went to Charlottesville to join in the counter-protest against what is said to be the white nationalist, the white supremacist perspective. Now, the Antifa side, anti-fascists, these are Marxist and anarchist people. They're National Socialist in their orientation. Now, of course, National Socialism and socialism, which, of course, is a national phenomenon, we hear that in the name of the party in the Weimar Republic that brought Hitler to power, right? He was a National Socialist, and so was FDR. FDR was a nationalist and a socialist, though he did not have, as some of the protesters do, have a racial perspective. He did not really have a racial perspective, though his side was all white, of course, all Anglican, all high-end immigrants. That he was from the Dutch wing of the immigrant party, and so he, like Hitler, was a socialist and a nationalist and wanted national power. These men, in their respective nation states, their respective capitals, were alike in many, many ways. And if you think about the arguments in Charlottesville, the cries and chants back and forth, the things thrown, people squirting from squeeze bottles, urine on each other, and throwing feces at each other, some holding up shields to deflect the blows, and others calling the protesters racist, and others on the other side saying, "You're racists." And there's simply just a lot of confusion. Now, I'm not going to be able to disentangle every thread there that you're hearing, but I think we need to understand that what we're seeing is a squabble among brethren, a family fight, a feud over the supper table. And some, for example, the city councilman in Charlottesville who wanted and got the removal of these estimable statues of these estimable Southern generals, he is a racist. Okay, he's a racist, and anything that touches the South, anything that touches the Southern nation in 1861, that is inherently racist. That by definitionally racist. It's genetically racist, right? It's not representing anything else but that. And so you have the one side, and then you have, of course, those on the in the white supremacy, the vanguard movement. That those groups, they also have a racial argument to make, appealing to young college people, appealing to young men who are white, and seeking to get them on their side to join in the protest and to say, we stand for something, we stand for traditional values and so on, and join us in our event. For which was permitted and for which there were security arrangements made. And the protesters say that the Virginia police, the state police that were part of the arrangements to keep the peace, failed to do so. And this is a remarkable suggestion in light of earlier abuse by police in Charlottesville, where police just arrested people willy-nilly who didn't instantly, on their beck and call, vacate a street, which we read about. We read about that from John Whitehead at the Rutherford Institute, based in Charlottesville. Now, Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally makes a statement that shows this confusion, and because it's so confusing, you have to understand this as part of a family feud. Well, this is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me just a minute of your time here at Nooga Radio, 1240 AM and 92.7 FM, live on Facebook at Nooga Radio, and live, of course, on YouTube. And you can hear us on your smartphone. Get the TuneIn Radio app. The TuneIn Radio app, just download that for just a megabyte or two of space on your phone, and have us as your favorite station. McNally says in a kind of throwaway line in a commentary, a brief commentary of a few lines, a couple of paragraphs. He says free speech and free assembly are cornerstones of American democracy. Well, we have a republic, by the way, and the lieutenant governor forgot. He goes on to say that hatred, bullying, intimidation, and political violence are not, okay? We have a solemn obligation to condemn anyone who marches under the banner of a genocidal regime. Now, the question is, which one is he referring to? Now, you see here, he was allowing Southerners and Southern nationalists to be tarred with the racial regime of Adolf Hitler, that is to say, the swastika. And there were some neo-Nazi people there, sympathetic to Nazism, sympathetic to the eagle, right? The eagle that was the banner of the third Hitlerian republic, and so which regime is he referring to? Of course, he's referring to Hitler, but he wants you to think that he believes that is also a reference to the South, but he doesn't want to say that, right? He doesn't want to say that because he recognizes that the Confederacy was not genocidal at all. But he wants you to think that he thinks that, but he's not going to commit to saying it. You see what I'm saying? At the moment, free speech and assembly become incitement and violence, he says. Notice the heavy hand. He is a very strong man. These are nationalists, and they are strong people. They believe in force. He says the moment that free speech and assembly become incitement and violence, which is a hard thing to say. I mean, how does an assembly become violence, right? What does that mean? Again, this is badly written and badly thought out. How does free speech become incitement? Well, there we can understand that. Free speech can be incitement. But how can assembly become violence? That the violence came from the counter-protesters in Charlottesville. He says the state has a duty to shut it down immediately and protect our communities and our people. So here now we have this protective impulse, the reflex that says, well, we have to have the police state. We have to have total policing. And no one can speak. Everyone has to be vacated. Everyone has to be arrested. And we're going to spray you, tase you, handcuff you, throw you down, put our knees on your necks, stop you from breathing. Who knows what other violence was committed by the police, aside from those injured by the car that plowed through the crowd, killing one and injuring about 20. All of us, McNally says, left, right, and center, of course that's where he is, need to do a better job of listening to one another. But those who bully and intimidate in the name of a wicked and murderous ideology have no place in that conversation. Well, again, what does that mean? He's referring, of course, to the Nazi Empire, the Nazi Empire and the eagle and the crooked cross. But he's implying that everybody there is a Nazi. Again, that is inflammatory. That is simply inflammatory. Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally, you are a strong man, and we impressed that you believe in strength. Shutting it down immediately. The state has a duty to shut it down immediately. And then to hear H.R. McMaster, the federal security advisor of President Trump, calling what happened terrorism, that is incitement. That is inciting language. That is inflammatory language. Why do we have this kind of language when we have statements that seem to be intent on bringing peace, right? Statements that do include the sort of pacific, quietening, calming, soporific. Soporific is something that puts you to sleep. Okay, soporific statements, which are joined with others that wave a flag, also waving a flag and jabbing a finger, and that's what Lieutenant Governor Bill Haslam's pick, right? Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally is doing. Those engaged in political violence should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And then, of course, we have a more obsequies to the police. My sincere thanks to the first responders and law enforcement officers who are bringing peace back to Charlottesville. Well, that is a statement, again, confusing. And the argument is, as we look at things here from a local economy and free market perspective, it is an argument among nationalists. You have your white nationalists, then you have your federal nationalists. That's where he represents that. We have our state nationalists, and we have a dispute between Antifa and some of the southern advocates and the white supremacy advocates. We have a debate among friends. They are friends. They are at the same table. They're in the same family. Neither side really represents what we argue for here at Nooga Radio and on the David Tulis Show, and that is peaceful separation, right? Peaceful. Let people do what they want. Let them go. Let us not be united. Let us not be united. The fact that we're united is the problem. And what we need to have is separation. We need to have people who are like each other, live together in the same city, in the same county, in the same state, and those who are different, who are oppressed by them, go away. Let them go away. Let them form their own enclaves, their own counties, their own nations, their own fiefdoms. Think about Europe at the time of the Holy Roman Empire. What is now Germany was comprised of hundreds of duchies, kingdoms, fiefdoms, areas, and zones, often headed by a noble lord or noble family or coalition of families. There were hundreds of them. But what happened? Well, in the late 1800s, there was consolidation by the Kaisers, the people who were the Kaisers, that family, which led Germany to greatness, right? The greatness of World War I and the greatness of World War II, brought about by consolidation of disparate elements. Saxony, where Volkswagen is resident, one of those absorbed into the greater Germany. We have here the greater America, thanks to Abraham Lincoln. 800-8949, 800-8949. Beth Foster is a pastor in the liberal wing of Christianity. She is Mercy Junction Justice and Peace Center. She's interviewed. I think TV9 has done the best job in the past couple of days covering this event. It has interviews with people who were there, including Beth, whom I believe is giving an interview through Facebook. With TV9, she said, you had these white supremacist groups, with lots and lots of people coming through, lots and lots of men coming through, and they had shields and they had sticks and they were carrying guns, she says. In that return, I'm not sure if she took part in the Democratic Socialist protest that marked the death of Heather Heyer, the woman killed by the runaway car with 19 injured, though TV9 reports that 9 were released already from the hospital. The Democratic Socialists of America, the DSA, had a protest at Coolidge Park. There are photographs there. Alex George reporting happening right now. Vigil in Coolidge Park with the victims of yesterday's Charlottesville attacks, as she says. And the inflammatory language is not just among politicians. It is among the media itself. And I think we need to take to task here the Associated Press. The Associated Press is of course a progressive organization. It is used by the Chattanooga Time-Free Press and the Tennessee and other broadcasters, but it has a great fault. It reflects the mood of the moment often, and it does not know how to stand above the fray and report both sides as if it were neutral. Right? Of course, no one can be neutral, and yet the Associated Press pretends that it is. We have Lieutenant Governor McNally making inflammatory statements, but here in a feature story about the crash suspect, right? The crash suspect, Mr. James Alex Field Jr. We have kind of an investigation into his past, speaking with his high school teacher, and making note of his background. In one paragraph, which is to say the 6th paragraph of the story, the two writers just couldn't wait to get the word hate in, and they did twice in the same paragraph. And of course, now to call the Vanguard America a hate group, I think is not objective. Okay, and the reason it's not objective is to who's to say when someone is not a hate group. Okay, if you can call Vanguard America a hate group, and perhaps it does hate people, maybe it does hate certain aspects of American life. It's not socialized enough, perhaps there's not enough national control of industry and so on, the things that they want. how is it a hate group, and when does someone not be a hate group? How does the Associated Press determine when that is? Is it case by case? And the sentence refers to the 20-year-old Fields. The paragraph refers to the 20-year-old Fields had been photographed hours earlier carrying the emblem of Vanguard America, one of the hate groups, it says, that organized the Take America Back campaign in protest of the removal of a Confederate statue. The group on Sunday denied any association with the suspect, even as a separate hate group. Okay, okay. Do we get that? That the Associated Press is editorializing in its news copy. Now, it's one thing to write a column, as Pam Sohn no doubt is churning away a couple of columns to drop on us in tomorrow's editions, maybe one in today's editions. I'm sure there is one. And she can call them a hate group. That's fine. But the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is quoted by the AP as an objective authority, is a hate group itself. It is one itself because its job is to foment hatred. Now, we think that hatred is on the right. Well, it's really as much on the left. The both sides that are it's an artificial construct, left and right. They use that epithet each against the other. And so to call any group a hate group in news copy, I think is simply editorializing, and that's to say a lot. Okay, you think, boy, that's a pretty mild comment from David Tulis, but to say that the Associated Press is editorializing is to condemn its operation as being unjust, as being progressive, as indeed taking a side in this story. And to make sure the reader understands that the Vanguard group is to be hated, right? If you say that a group is a hate group, what you're saying is this group is to be hated. That's what you're saying. You're not simply describing what its views are, that its views reach out, arc out like mortar shells or a spray of machine gun bullets and hate particular groups and particular people, Jews or blacks or immigrants. That you think that you're getting away with doing just that if you're an AP writer, but that's not it. There's more than that. It's a code to the reader of this objective story that he is to hate Vanguard America. That is a group that is loathsome. It should not be tolerated. We should not even consider it. Its views are not to be tolerated at all. And yet, if you look at these groups, on the one side, the white nationalists, and those on the other side, the Democratic Socialists who had their protest at Coolidge Park, they're very similar. They each believe in government control of the economy. They each believe in licensing. They each believe in the democratic control, as they might say, of the means of production, of the means of culture. In other words, the press, the arts, they should be either controlled and regulated or subsidized. And we cannot have freedom. We are not allowing freedom to take place. Democratic Socialists believe that both the economy and society should be run democratically to meet human needs, not to make profits for a few. We are a political and activist organization, it says on its website, not a party. Through campus and community-based chapters, its members use a variety of tactics, from legislative to direct action, to fight for reforms that empower working people. Well, they are not for the working people at all. Socialism always leads to the control of the few of the many. That's always what happens. That's what we have now. That's what we have in national economy. That's what we have in Washington. We have national control of the entire government, of the entire economy. The economy, by which we're to understand, we're referring to what people own, right? What people own and do in their businesses and in their enterprises. Andy Burke is joining in, of course. He says, well, Beth Foster, just by the way, she's back in town to spread acceptance. Okay, she's here to spread acceptance, and so any idea of hate coming from her is not to be imagined. Don't imagine that Beth Foster hates anybody. She is here, according to TV9, to spread acceptance. We have the mayor says, no. Here's Andy Burke. Racism, hatred, and violence don't belong in any American city. Chattanooga stands with Charlottesville against the forces trying to tear it apart. Well, just because you have a protest for a white nationalist argument and then another one for the left nationalist argument, that's not tearing anything apart. These people have a right to be there. They have a right to protest, and let there be some hot wars. That's fine. Let there be a few things from them. That's not terrorism by anybody's charge, anybody's call. Beth says we have an obligation to stand against white supremacy, and and to be present and let them know that there is not a safe place for them to spout their ideology. Well, there should be a safe place, and that should be the public square. The public square should be safe for everybody, whatever his perspective, whether it's black racist or white racist, whether it's progressive, whether it's free market, whether it's Confederate, whether it's neo-Confederate, whether it's American. The people who fly the federal flag are as much involved in a hateful ideology as those that fly the Confederate flag. You have two nation states that fought a war. One side lost, and the other side rose to eminence. The United States and the federal government rose to be the great terror nation. What government has liquidated 2 cities full of innocent civilians? 2 cities liquidated in a single flash. Who did that? That was your government. You, my listener, here in Chattanooga, that's your government, the one you want to control the border, the one you want to keep us free, right? Well, I've had enough of national government. I've had enough of nationalism, left and right.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader.